Welcome back to Newsx. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. In this conversation, we will discuss some of the most pressing global issues. We'll explore how recent immigration trends have impacted security concerns in the West and whether stricter immigration policies could help reduce terrorism. We'll also examine the prospects for stability in Syria following Assad's regime and the potential for al-Jawlani. We will also consider the feasibility of a hostage exchange with Hamas and whether President-elect Donald Trump could play a role in brokering peace between Israel and Hamas. Finally, we'll discuss the strategies of the Quad could adopt to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. Let's find out. Joining us is John Rossamando, a seasoned geopolitical analyst and the president of Viking Research Associates. He has a distinguished career, having served as a senior analyst for counterterrorism at the Investigative Project on Terrorism for 8 years. His work has been featured in numerous publications. He has also contributed to the Center for Security Policy, a Washington-based think tank. Thank you, John Rossamando, for joining us. My first question to you is, do you think immigration has resulted in more acts of terrorism in the West?
Well, I think that if you look at terrorist activities, especially in Europe, most of the attacks have been carried out by migrants, whether from Syria, Libya, and Al-Qaeda and ISIS have taken advantage of the migrant flows to carry out acts of terrorism.
Do you think stricter immigration laws against certain communities will solve the problem of terrorism?
Well, I think that strict vetting to ensure that the people who are brought in do not have connections with extremist groups, whether it's the Muslim Brotherhood, Jamaat Islami, Al-Qaeda, Tablighi Jamaat, or other groups that seek to undermine Western civilization should be excluded.
Do you think there is a possibility of a stable regime in Syria after the ouster of Assad?
Well, I think that Turkey will do everything that it can to ensure that the HTS regime it installed in Damascus is the only government in Syria. I think it remains to be seen how it's able to work things out with the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is the Kurdish-dominated militia that controls northeastern Syria. I also think it remains to be seen whether or not Ahmed Shara, as he now wants to be referred to, will be able to keep the more extreme elements in his coalition together.
How hopeful are you that al-Jawlani, who was a designated terrorist and affiliate of ISIS, will not revive ISIS in the region?
Well, I don't have much hope other than keeping the status quo. I mean, so far, the Syrian Democratic Forces, supported by U.S. Special Forces, have kept ISIS in check. I think the real wild card is long-term, whether or not Jawlani will join with other Islamist groups to destabilize the region, despite what he's stated publicly.
Can the Middle East ever rid itself of Hamas, Houthis, and Hezbollah, all of which are supported by Iran?
Well, I don't think they'll ever fully get rid of them. They'll just come back in new forms. I'm sure that if the Iranian regime were to collapse tomorrow, Hezbollah would be in a very weakened state, even weaker than it is now. Hamas has support from Qatar and Turkey, so it might continue. However, I think that the biggest thing that right now Israel is worried about is a possible war with Turkey. So I think we have to keep an eye on that.
Do you think there is a chance of Israel striking a hostage exchange deal with Hamas?
Well, right now I think that's kind of remote, and the best estimates now obtained by Newsx, U.S. news agency, is that there are only 20 left alive. So I think that it's really going to be very difficult to reach an agreement because neither side wants to give in.
Do you think incoming US President-elect Donald Trump can negotiate a peace deal between Israel and Hamas?
Well, I think that President Trump said to himself yesterday during a Mar-a-Lago press conference that all hell will break loose if Hamas does not release the remaining hostages or and release the bodies of the deceased. So I think that it will be interesting once he becomes president a week from Sunday, after a week from Sunday.
What do you think are responsible for the roles for the Quad in the Indo-Pacific to counter China?
Well, I think that the Trump administration will take a strong stance against China. The one thing that's been missing over the past 4 years has been strong leadership coming from Washington. I think that President Trump will provide that leadership to contain China. So I think I'm rather optimistic.
Trump has previously failed in maintaining relationship with world leaders, North Korea being an example of this. Do you think he will ever revive a friendship with North Korea?
Well, I don't think that President Trump has any interest in an alliance with North Korea, but in terms of using personal diplomacy to reduce tensions, I think that we saw a reduction in the number of missile launches when President Trump was president compared to when Joe Biden became president. So I think that he will do everything that he can to try to reduce tensions with Kim Jong Un.
Trump has shown interest in making Canada the 51st US state. Do you think this is a real possibility?
Well, I mean, as far as Canada is the 51st state, it's just President Trump raising rhetorical statements that he doesn't mean. But when it comes to Greenland, he is very much interested in acquiring Greenland to keep China from obtaining its mineral wealth, which it can use against the United States. China already has a near monopoly on the rare earth minerals. It would be a very strong place for the United States to have to exploit rare earth minerals. I think you're referring to Panama. Panama has become a place where the Chinese military's companies have obtained concessions over the Panama Canal, which the United States built, and President Trump wants to get back under our control.
What, according to you, led to Trudeau's resignation, and how do you analyse political situation in Canada?
Well, Canadians have grown tired of inflation. Canadians have grown tired of being humiliated. They've grown tired of having their liberties curtailed by Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government. I'm relatively optimistic that the Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre will take power later this year, and that Mr. Poilievre will be the next Prime Minister of Canada, and that he will forge a positive relationship with President Trump.
How do you view the political situation in the US since the January 6th Capitol riots?
Well, let's put it this way. We had 4 years of inflation. We had 4 years of incompetent leadership in the White House. And President Trump said what President Reagan said to Jimmy Carter, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Overwhelmingly, Americans looked at how they were under the Trump presidency and said, we want more of that. But the only people who care about January 6th, 2021 anymore are Democrats who were defeated in the polls. It's just sour grapes at this point.
What do you anticipate for Trump's second term?
I anticipate President Trump restoring national pride to America that we've had lacking for the past 4 years. The world will no longer wonder where America stands. We've had a moribund presidency that's been run by his staff and bureaucrats. President Biden's mental capacity has declined. We're going to have a strong, decisive president who will get things done, and there will be no vacillation, whether we're talking about India, Japan, Iran, or China, where America stands.
Trump has been critical of Biden picking George Soros for the Medal of Freedom. Do you think Soros has meddled with the judiciary and made attempts to topple governments in other countries?
Soros went and funded prosecutors across America who have been soft on crime. Their leniency has led to an explosion of criminal activity in the urban areas of America. He's funded groups linked to Hamas. He's funded the destabilization of countries around the world. And the man is a complete and utter menace. Most recently, in South Asia, his groups helped to topple Sheikh Hasina and deprived India of an ally.
Trump has blamed the New Orleans attack on immigration. Do you think strict immigration rules will help end crime and terror incidents in the US?
Well, let's put it this way. We have unvetted migrants. They're not immigrants. An immigrant is somebody who follows the law and comes in legally. They've been vetted to ensure that they don't belong to extremist parties, to ensure that they don't belong to criminal gangs. We have no idea who these millions of people who have come into this country are. And we've seen a large increase in crime that has been directly connected to groups like Tres de Aragua from Venezuela.
Do you think Trump will succeed in negotiating peace between Ukraine and Russia? What options does he have? Will he cut funding to Ukraine and NATO?
Well, I think what he'll do is he will probably increase support for the Ukrainian government to force Vladimir Putin into negotiations. I think ultimately you'll end up seeing something more like what you have in North Korea, where you have an armistice separating the two Koreas. You'll have the Russian-occupied zone of Ukraine and the rest that remains under the control of the Ukrainian government. But I think that it's going to be a lot of variables, whether you're going to get Zelensky and Putin to agree to at least an armistice.
Elon Musk has been very vocal in his criticism against heads of state in Germany, the UK and Canada. Do you think this is acceptable? Why is he doing this?
Let's look at what's happened in the United Kingdom. You've had an explosion in the number of rapes done by Pakistani immigrants who see the native white population as inferior and something that they can do with what they want. I think that you have Elon Musk trying to call these people to account, and you've had crime and terrorism in Germany that has been exclusively brought by the migrants. So I think that Elon Musk has every right to highlight these. We live in democracies where you're supposed to debate things, not shut things up because they're politically inconvenient.
Thank you, John Rossamando, for speaking to us on Focal Length. With that, it's a wrap on this episode. For more international news updates, stay tuned on Newsx.